We all know that Call of Duty is one of the biggest franchises around, with Modern Warfare 3 or Warzone 3 being one of the most played games around the world at the moment, at least one of the most played first-person shooters. But I reckon that most people that play COD today have never played the original. Now, it was released in 2003 on PC, and it definitely set the blueprint for the franchise going forward. It also introduced two iconic Call of Duty characters, Captain Price and Makarov. But did you know that the original Call of Duty also had Jason freaking Statham? But is it still any good? Let's check it out. Now, Call of Duty has three separate campaigns. First, we have the American campaign, where you're part of the Airborne. Second is the British, where you're playing as the British infantry, where you later join the SAS. And third, you're playing as the Soviets, where you fight to take back Stalingrad. So, as Call of Duty is over 20 years old now, there's going to be some odd things happening that you may see in the gameplay, and this is something that just happens with old games on like current hardware, such as, which you've probably already guessed by now, no widescreen. There's no widescreen option for Call of Duty at all, and for pretty much most of the gameplay, the player character is just generating no footstep audio for some reason. But here we go as the Americans. So as we drop into France and get into some early combat, I just need to say straight away just how good the moment-to-moment gameplay of Call of Duty still feels. After over 20 years, the gunplay just still feels really, really good, and I think it could be better than some games that actually come out today. You know, I think it actually feels better than Battlefield 2042, for example. And if you didn't know the devs, Infinity Ward, they were a newly formed studio that had just finished what is considered by many to be the best Medal of Honor game, Allied Assault. And then they wanted to create a Medal of Honor killer. That's their words, not mine. They wanted to move away though from the Medal of Honor style of like solo missions to more squad focused stuff. Not necessarily commanding squads like in Brothers in Arms, but having AI with you. And I would say having AI with you definitely has a better feeling of being in a battle and being in a war when compared to Medal of Honor. And playing this, even just the early levels, brings back so many memories. And I also think the MG42 still sounds so damn good in this original Call of Duty. And people that have never played the original Call of Duties, you'll see that you actually have health. No regen health, just normal health. So the first few levels have you pushing forward into this French town to take out some anti-air guns and defend against a counter-attack. So like I said earlier, the moment-to-moment gameplay, the gunplay still feels really damn good. And in these first few levels we get a good mix of mid-range and close quarters fighting. We also destroy a tank and get the sort of staple small turret section in Call of Duty, followed by another staple of Call of Duty, the vehicle chase level. And I think probably every Call of Duty has at least one vehicle chase level, like fully on-rail sections where you sit in a passenger seat being taken on a ride while trying to gun down as many enemies as you can. But it's decent enough and it serves its purpose really, which is to break up the first-person shooter action. Now if you've watched Band of Brothers, and if you haven't, why? Just go watch it. You'll remember the Break All Guns, which is episode 2, where Easy Company take out some artillery guns that are hitting the beaches. Now we have Call of Duty's interpretation of that very battle. Here we are working our way down the trenches, battling our way towards the artillery guns while fighting off other Germans in other trenches that are also trying to get over the top and down into ours. This level starts to highlight something that Call of Duty really started to use in a bad way, in my opinion, in later installments, which is infinite spawning AI. In some areas it can be fine and just sort of makes sense. In others it's just really a never-ending stream of nonsense. In this level it's okay, it's not too bad. And we do end it with an obligatory turret section. Now this mission is really one of the most important missions in Call of Duty history. It doesn't really do anything that's really big or different, but here we are, we're playing as the Americans still, and we need to get into this German compound to rescue a certain British prisoner, Captain Price. Yes, this is the mission that introduced the world to Captain Price, and yeah, he looks a bit different than what he does now. Even looks, you could say, a little bit similar to how he looks in the original Modern Warfare series, or trilogy you could say. Still got that epic handlebar mustache, or whatever it's called. And I think this mission is a good staple of Call of Duty. It's a straightforward corridor shooter mission. You know, you're going through this mansion, got to go through the tight corridors. It's good, right? It highlights what I think Call of Duty has always done really well, which is these corridor close quarter sections. I think too many games try going open world these days, and by doing that they end up putting in so much like bloat into the game to try and justify going open world. And I think I'm quite bored of open world games now. I would prefer a game that's a bit shorter and better than something that's just bigger. And with corridor shooters, they can be a lot more scripted, which gives you these better moments, like moments that are designed to be great instead of relying on emergent gameplay that really may never happen. And to me, this mission also highlights really how I think important it is having actual health instead of just regen health, because when you mess up in a fight, you get into a bad position, take a bit of damage, you can't just hide for a bit and get full health. You've got to keep pushing forward. You've got to hope that enemies drop health kits, or you push forward enough to find some health kits lying around. I think it makes the gunfights just a lot more tense. I think gaming has lost something by putting in regen health into nearly every shooter. But before we leave the Americans, we get one last mission with them, which is to rescue another British guy, Major Ingram. This one's a bit of a mad dash since you have a bit of a time limit, and I don't have that much to say about this mission, to be honest, since I pretty much just rushed through it because I had no idea how long it would take to actually get to the British guy, Major Ingram, to his cell to rescue him and then to fight my way back. So I just rushed there and then rushed back, and that was the American campaign, at least for now, finished. We get to the British campaign. So when I do these videos and I go back through old games, I do like to talk about the story of them, and I think that's because the first one I did, the first video I did looking at older games was Brothers in Arms. I played all 3 games through, and if you want to check that video out, I'll try to remember to put a link in the description or in the top right corner of your screen right now. And the narrative throughout Brothers in Arms is really strong because it puts so much focus on not just the story of that like squad or the company going through, you know, World War II, but also on the individual characters and how their relationships evolve throughout the war and how people sort of die or new people come in. But in Call of Duty there isn't that much of one, because you don't really spend a lot of time with any of the, you know, factions, you could say, in the game, and you know, your character is just, you know, it's just a walk-in gun pretty much. And I'm glad to say really that they kind of learned from this, because I think the first Call of Duty really to start pushing narrative was Modern Warfare. I think it was Modern Warfare. I think World at War came out after the first Modern Warfare, I think. But in between each level, instead of getting like some scripted moments or cinematics to actually try to tie things together, you just get a little bit of text to tell you about the mission. And I never really read them, so it's, yeah, that's on me. That would have given me some information about what's going on, but I prefer something in-game, like a cinematic or something. It could also be a bit of a budget constraint as well, because you have to allocate like budget and time towards creating these story arcs and stuff. But you see with the first 2 British levels that they are set in the very same location, and again that could be a bit of a budget thing, But first you need to fight your way in to secure this bridge, and then defend a counterattack. I mean, logically, it makes sense, because if you lost a key, like tactical location, you would need to take it back, because, you know, there's a war going on. But the whole counterattack mission, which is just set around the bridge, just on really one side of the bridge, you could say, feels a bit lazy, to be honest. It felt like they were just trying to pad out the length of the game. And we know that Call of Duty campaigns have suffered with very short campaigns in later entries. But after completing these first 2 missions as the British, you get sent to join the SAS, and you get sent on your first solo mission. And it's very Medal of Honor-esque, I would say. Medal of Honor, for me, they usually started out as these games where you were playing as part of a squad for a few levels, and then suddenly, because you were, you know, a good soldier, you joined it was the OSS in Medal of Honor, and then you went on these sort of stealthy missions. But in Call of Duty, because you're British, you're joining the SAS. I mean, I guess you could join the OSS anyway, but, or maybe not actually, because the OSS was the Americans. But anyway, SAS, you're now joined with Captain Price. He's been promoted to the SAS as well. And this mission, you know what, it kind of reminds me of the Dam mission from GoldenEye. And it pulls on the really great strength of what Call of Duty does really well, close quarters fighting down some corridors. And this mission, it highlights, I think, a bit of a limitation or a bad aspect of the AI in the game. Because a lot of the times it felt like as I was coming up to corners or going around a corner, you just see the AI like charging right at you instead of hanging back and trying to use some cover. A lot of the times they were just charging straight at me, like charging to their deaths. And it happens quite a few times. But other times they do effectively use cover. Now, the devs did try something different with AI in Call of Duty. They created something which they called Conduit, which was pretty much an AI pathfinding component. And to quote the devs, they've said that the AI in the game was designed to flank the opponent, plant grenades, and move from one cover point to another. So it could just be that because it was the first iteration of them trying something a bit different with AI, that it just wasn't refined enough. And I'm really guessing they worked on it for later Call of Duties and tried to make the AI a bit better. But I think this mission feels a bit padded, to be honest, because you do need to backtrack a significant portion of the level. Once you get through to one of the certain AA guns you need to take out, you literally just need to turn around and run nearly all the way back. They could have just like made this level to make you keep going forward instead of making you turn around. It's really strange. But next we get another staple of Call of Duty, which really reminded me of the finale of the first Modern Warfare. So here we are, being driven around again, kind of like the passenger vehicle section from the American campaign, but we're in the back of a truck, being chased by the enemy, but this time we're joined by Jason Statham himself, who's given us Panzerfausts to take out the enemy pursuing us. Now, if you play the original Call of Duty Modern Warfare, I mean, you probably will recognise this same sort of mission from the finale, because I think this type of mission has probably been in so many Call of Duty. Again, it sort of serves its purpose to break up the action of first-person shooter stuff, and it's like good enough, really. You drive around, you get chased by trucks and jeeps, you keep taking them out, you get to a bridge and you've got to cover Jason Statham as he plants an explosive or something on there to stop them chasing you, and then of course you get towards the end of the level and it's a turret section. But I think there might be a bit of a bug with this turret section because the crosshair just isn't lined up with where the shots of the AA turret are going at all. I mean, it's easy to adjust for it, but it's just like a little annoying thing, which seems like a really simple oversight that I think it must be a bug with playing, you know, an old game on current gen hardware. But it's a standard Call of Duty turret section, right? Big and bombastic, lots of guys gunning down lots of planes and lots of explosions. On the next mission, we need to talk about the Call of Duty Formula a little bit. So this mission, we're with Captain Price and we're taking out the German battleship Tirpitz. I think I've said that right. And you sneak on board with him, disguised as German officers. You've got to show your papers, very Medal of Honor style. You make your way to the armory, but then all hell let loose breaks out and you've got to gun your way out while planting explosives within the ship. I think Call of Duty follows this like formula in every single stealth mission. You start off sneaky and then suddenly you got to have these big action and big explosions. I think it really reminds me of that stealth mission in COD World War II. Yeah, Call of Duty World War II, where I think you're sneaking in with the resistance, but then the mission ends with that ridiculous train crash. I'm pretty sure that's a stealth mission. Now, the Tirpitz in World War II was sunk by the British Air Force. I think I'm right in saying that. But it was heavily damaged by previous attacks by the Air Force, and the actual first operation against it was taken out by British mini-submarines. They pulled mines around the Tirpitz and they planted a couple of demo charges on the hull. So now let's compare what Call of Duty did to another World War II shooter which released only days before Call of Duty released, Hidden and Dangerous 2. Now I'm currently playing through this game because the next video I'm going to make will be on Hidden and Dangerous 2, and you have a mission in this game where you're taking out the Tirpitz. But the mission in Hidden and Dangerous 2 has you controlling 2 mini-subs because you have a squad of 4 people, and that's 2 men per sub. Now, to take out the Tirpitz, what you need to do is use your mini-sub to go to the Tirpitz, where you're, of course, underwater and underneath the Tirpitz, and you plant 2 demo charges on the hull. And that's it. That's the only interaction you have with the Tirpitz in that game. It at least is trying to recreate, partially, what happened to the Tirpitz in one of the attacks against it. But in Hidden and Dangerous 2, you do something else in the mission where there's a minesweeper ship close by and you need to get on board that and still be sneaky and find an Enigma machine. But it also reminds me of Battlefield 5, where you take out a heavy water plant in Norway. Then in Battlefield 5 you control this teenage girl who gets into the heavy water plant, takes out a bunch of Germans by herself, and destroys the plant. When in reality there was a team of Norwegian commandos who destroyed the production facility, and they completed their mission without firing a single shot. But yeah, Call of Duty, they got to do it their way. They got to have big explosions and stuff all the time. And also, Captain Price actually dies in this mission. And I didn't even realise it at first when I finished the mission and I got back to the boat with Jason Statham. I realised that Captain Price hadn't joined me back. So I had to Google what happened, and yeah, he actually got gunned down at one point. And that's how Captain Price dies in the World War II timeline. Like, what? The Soviet campaign. Now, when people think of the original Call of Duty, I think most people would remember the 2 opening missions from the Soviet campaign. Now, they're set in Stalingrad, and the first one is storming Stalingrad itself from the river. And goddamn, you're storming it with no weapon. You get given the ammo, your other guy gets given the rifle, and God knows where he ends up. He probably ends up dying straight away. You can't take one step backwards, no retreat, no surrender, team kill all traitors and cowards. It's pretty crazy stuff. It's pretty much like a D-Day landing, but without a weapon, and you'll get team killed if you try something they don't want you to do. Now, missions like these are why I prefer having loads of AI around you instead of just like a solo mission, because you can see all your friendly AI charging forward, getting gunned down, there's bodies everywhere, and it's quite immersive. Although, I did die during this mission, and because there was no checkpoint when I died, I had to restart the whole landing process again. The next mission, we're onto the Red Square, and again we're charging the German lines with no weapon, and again team kill retreaters. It's in this mission we get introduced to another iconic Call of Duty character, Makarov. In this Call of Duty we actually work alongside Makarov. First off, we work alongside him to clear out this building so we can take out some German officers and machine gunners that are holding the Red Square and stopping us from advancing. Now, I think one of the biggest criticisms I have against the Soviet campaign is just the lack of detail when you're outside of buildings. Yeah, it's a small thing, really, but it does kind of stand out to me. It just could just be a limitation with the tech at the time. Now, of course, with it being Stalingrad, we do get some sniping action. Though I thought they would have put a greater focus on sniping though, just because it's Stalingrad, right? I think it's a bit of a missed opportunity, I reckon. They could have had like a sniper mission reminiscent of the first Modern Warfare sniper mission, or it wouldn't be reminiscent, it would come before, so it'd be what the Modern Warfare one would be based off. Although there is this section of what I think is meant to be Pavlov's house in Stalingrad. You snipe some dudes on machine guns and then push forward to take out the building, or to take the building. But I think this section might actually be the worst in the game, because once the house is taken, you need to defend it from counterattacks. You get attacked from multiple sides by infantry and tanks. But to take out the tanks, you need to use these anti-tank rifles that have been placed in the house. But it's the infantry that's the problem, because your own infantry have seemingly become rubbish. They're unable to hold their own, and they just let the enemy AI gun them down and swarm all over the building. This section just goes on for too long. It can feel like a real slog. It's not that enjoyable at all. But after that, there is this sort of short, decent enough mission in a tank factory to set the stage for the next mission, which is in a tank. So yeah, it's a gimmick tank mission. The tank control's good enough, and it's nice that if you hold down a button, which I think is the jump button, it centers the tank body on your aim. It's a pretty easy mission, to be honest. Most tanks die in one hit, and their aim is pretty bad. You get a bunch of friendly tanks of you that are pretty useless, but they're there to soak up some hits if the enemy ever decide to actually aim at them. I don't think when I played it they killed a single enemy tank throughout the whole mission, and a lot of the AI just can be like that in Call of Duty. Even though you are sort of in a squad, you're the guy who's got to do everything. AI are almost like set dressing that are just there to sort of absorb some damage. But this is an easy mission just to break up the FPS action. And one thing I'd like to point out is when you get to the town section, nearly all the buildings have a destructible element to them, which is pretty cool for a 20-year-old game. And there's even games that come out today that won't put any sort of destruction in. Now on to the final 3 missions, and for each of these we revisit each faction, starting with the Americans. Now these missions really should be like major ending set pieces, but the American one doesn't feel like it at all. It just feels like another standard mission. You need to push through this like winter forest, this near Bastogne. Gotta take out some artillery guns and clear out some bunkers. It's nothing major. And for the last American mission, yeah, it's just a missed opportunity. It really feels like they came up against a budget or a time constraint with this mission. The British one is a little bit better. I mean, you do get to team up with Jason Statham, and your objective is to destroy some V2 rockets, but it feels quite similar to the previous American mission. Again, got to make our way through a wintry forest, clear out some enemy positions, and then we get to the V2 staging area where we have to fight through some bunkers, hit a switch to fill them up with some fuel, plant explosives on the rockets, destroy the rockets, and get out. And then the final Soviet mission, this is more of a actual set piece one, and our objective is to take out the Reichstag, or to get to the Reichstag and plant our flag on it. To get there first, we've got to take out some anti-tank positions. Again, it kind of feels like this part of the mission was like not done as much, or not as much work was put into it. It feels like, again, like budget or time constraints. I do get a bit spicy here because I get down to like 1 HP and I still need to take out 2 enemy positions, but I do succeed it. Now the final set piece is the building itself. Push towards it, snipe out some machine gunners, get into the building. There is this sort of cool looking interior section of the building, and it was a government building. I think it still is a government building. Get to the top, wave the flag, game over. So that's the original Call of Duty finished. Now, was it any good? I mean, yes, I said multiple times throughout the video that the moment-to-moment gameplay and the gunplay is still really good. It's better than, you know, recent games that have come out. I think I did say earlier that it's better, we've got better gunplay than 2042. And yeah, it's a good game. Parts of it have aged, so I don't think there's like really a coherent narrative, and I think it's because of the separate campaigns and they didn't link the missions together enough for me, at least. I think if you picked up or played Call of Duty, the original today, it's good. Yeah, like I said, it's good. It is a good game. And from this game, you know, it set the blueprint for the franchise going forward. You can kind of understand how it evolved and became bigger than what it started out as. And I will be looking at Call of Duty 2 in the future to see how it then went to the next level. I can't do Call of Duty 3 because that was console only and never came to PC. I don't know if I'll look at the original Modern Warfare. I might do World at War because I never played World at War. At least I never played the single player. I played the multiplayer a little bit. I've covered a couple of other classic shooters, the entire Brothers in Arms series, and also Medal of Honor Airborne. I've tried to remember to put links in the description in case you want to check those out. If you've got any recommendations of other games to check out, like I said earlier, I'll be checking out Hidden and Dangerous 2 for the next video. I've already playing through the single player campaign on that. But it's been good going through these kind of classic shooters to see how good they are, how good they still play today, because even though, well, graphics age, if the gameplay is good, it's still a damn good game. And the original Call of Duty is still a damn good game. So if you like this video, give it a like, dislike if you didn't. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.